This is going to be a shorter video. It's going to be amazing because we're going to talk about how much you should charge. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today's video is going to be talking about how much I feel you as a videographer should charge when it comes to video production, and some of my thought processes when it comes into how much you should charge and why, and where those prices really come and why those prices may change throughout your career, and when you should know as a videographer or as a business owner, you should know that you should up your prices specifically. So this is one of the age-old questions that a lot of videographers get, and that's why I wanted to build this video and talk to this video and talk to you guys about how I go about charging and why, and then how. This is kind of along the same lines of how to set expectations, but I wanted to go over some of the more finance-wise and how much you need to think about, and some things you think are in specific when it comes to the actual finance end or the actual quoting process when it comes to video. So the main thing which I do is I break up the video cost for that client. So for example, say you're a client, you come to me and you want to do a promotional video. So what I'm going to do is I'm then going to say, okay, so in this promotional video, what would you like to happen? And we're going to explore what that would look like. We're then going to create what's known as a pre-production document. So that's going to showcase and just outline specifically a shot list and give you and me you and the client, or you and me, an idea of what we're looking to create and how we're looking to create it, and some of the really, really key shots that are going to allow us to articulate that message or showcase what we're trying to do in specific. So after we've got that, I'll break that down into a cost, and I do this all in the quoting process after I've been asked to quote up a job from a client, and there's more videos coming on how to actually go through that process as well. But once you've got that process and you've got pre-production locked in, you're then going to move into, and you're going to explain this, and this is why I'm kind of explaining it a little bit, is going to be, you then want to talk about how much filming cost is going to be. So personally for me, I quote from either a few hours, because for some projects you may only want, say, 2 to 3 hours, or an hour, or 3 hours or so. So that's an hourly rate that I would expect that client to pay. And if, for example, you wanted up to 4 hours, then that would go into a half-day rate, so that's half day. And the same would be true of a full day. So if you have multiple days or you have a full day, I'm going to charge you by a certain number of the full day amount. So these are specific costs that change, and these are, specifically things which you can work out and you can think about, and I'm going to go over that in just a moment. But then when it comes to editing, personally, I know some people do it via the project cost, and they give an estimate on how much they think the project's going to be in regards to overall quote as well. But personally for me, what I try to do is I try to say, well, it's going to be this hourly rate, and then I give a rough idea on, say for example, a promotional video. It's going to take me between 4 and 6 hours to edit together, and to give your first draft. Now if you want there's some changes, that's going to add on maybe an hour or two, depending on how many changes and what we're looking at in regards to changes as well. And I would expect you to understand that that's going to incur the hourly rate times by the number of extra hours that I've added on top of that. But to give an initial quote, I only quote up to the first draft, because some of the time you find that the first draft is happy and everyone's happy, and there you go, job done, and then you get paid. So the expectation setting in that regard as well is when you book in a job, I expect to have, so there's 2 ways to do it. Either you can take the whole specific quoting job, so the whole job specifically, and cut that in half and expect 50% up front to cover the shooting time or etc. Or what you can do is you can ask your client specifically to pay you for the shooting after the shooting's just happened, and until they have paid for that, the editing will not begin. It's completely up to you. I've found that some clients prefer just to pay upfront for the shooting, for example, or they prefer to pay a 50% deposit upfront before the filming day as well. So it just really depends. Depending on which client, and depending on if I've worked with that client before, I will kind of gauge out and give them options when it comes to the payment methods. And this is something that I would always recommend that you do whenever you're looking to quote up a job for anyone, or you're in conversation about money with someone, because if you give them options, it's going to make their life a lot easier to then choose how they wish to move forward, as long as you're being careful enough, or you're making sure that your time is being paid for, and they understand how that looks and how much that's going to cost, and then what that cost actually covers, and where there may be additional costs on top of the production costs which we're talking about, because of course when we quote a job, all we're talking about is the production costs in specific. So the question will come at some point, and I've had this, and I'm sure you'll have this the longer you're in business, is the question is going to be, how long do you wait until you up your prices? Now, it's very, very simple in my opinion. It's very, very simple to understand and gauge when you should do this and how you should do this, because what you're going to do and what you're going to look to do is you're going to look to see what your supply, so how much can you provide against your demand. So if you have a high level of demand, the higher your demand, the more money or the more you should be charging per hour, because your demand is a lot higher. Therefore, simple economics says there's a certain level of demand, because you are only one person in most cases, unless you're then looking to build an agency and build other videographers and etc. But then that's a more complicated puzzle which we'll cover in later videos as I explore to do that. But just for me specifically, what you're going to look at is, say for example, you're only going to work 12 hours, or you're only going to work 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. It doesn't particularly matter how many hours you are, but what you need to ask yourself is, how many hours do you need to get paid, or what hourly rate do you need to get paid for that day's work for you to be able to pay for everything which you need to pay for, whether that's rent, for example, or food, bills, utilities, upgrades on gear, etc., so on and so on. And all of that should be thought about when it comes to the quote, and when you should bring in that quote and how you should quote accordingly. Now, something which there's going to be a misconception about, and something which some people are going to think about, is in my opinion, the numbers in which you quote, and these are always ideals. You should always listen to the client's needs, listen to the client's wants, listen to the client's concerns, because what you can do is, if you are seen and you're able to negotiate with them to help them understand why video is beneficial and understand why video is good to do, you'll then be in a position where whenever they need a new video, they're more likely to come to you because you provided a good service and you're not trying to penny pinch. Specifically, I would never recommend penny pinching. Of course, there's a line that everyone else has that's different between what they are willing to do and are not willing to do for free. And that adds on to another point I'm going to briefly make within this video, because I don't want this video to drag too long. But should you do free work? The answer is really simple. You need to ask yourself again, what is your level of supply that you can provide, and are you at full capacity, half capacity, or quarter capacity? And then what is your demand? So what do you think your demand is going to be, or how much or how many people specifically do you feel is going to need your service, or how much other work do you have on? Specifically, these are things which you're going to think about when it comes to your quoting process and answering the question of should you do free work, or should it be something that you should do in regards to free work. Now, free work is this kind of back and forward topic where some people say no, you should never do free work, and others say yes, you should. I think you should, but it should be on your own terms. So, for example, if I want to do a specific project, there's a very specific passion project, then yes, specifically, I should, do that for free because I want to do it and it's on my terms. But if it's, for example, a business owner comes to you and says, look, I don't really have budget, would you be interested in doing this project? And you go, well, actually, to be honest, I've kind of done a lot of those and I have a lot of those in my portfolio already, and it's not really necessarily something that's going to help benefit or push me forward in my career, or something I don't necessarily feel overly passionate about. So unfortunately, in this one, I'm not going to be able to move forward with that free project. But if you specifically with something where it's something that you really, really want to do, and etc., and you feel that they are going to either struggle to pay you or struggle to pay you what you're worth, then sometimes it may be better to go in and do one free job to then lead on to the potential of doing some more paid jobs. It's a concept called free to fee, and free to fee as a concept is this concept where you offer something for free, you showcase how well you can do it and how well you can showcase that business or how well you can showcase that product. And then after the fact, you expect or you hope that the business owner will see value in what you do, and then they're more likely to pay you for it because they already know what they're going to get. Now, there's many ways to do this. So, and depending on the service or product will depend on the best way to do this. But, anyone watching this video who isn't necessarily a videographer, you could take this logic or you could take this opinion when it came to anything else that you do as well, because what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to tweak and change how you offer your service. So if you offer, say, for example, a one-to-one call for free, but what that's going to do is that's going to help you understand your ideal consumer. That's going to help you understand who the person is that you want to talk to, and you'll be able to offer them a discount, a deal, a product or a service which you feel is going to help them and help them be able to better their life, or for you to be able to eventually make money from them, or be able to increase your revenue or increase your profits. So that's kind of my thought process when it comes to how much to quote and why. And there's no age-old answer. There's no this is the specific price you should be. Some people, money is a very subjective thing, and I'll leave it on this. I'm going to leave it on this. Money and how much you spend on something. Some people see value in whatever that may be. Others don't necessarily. Now, something which may be overseen is that, for example, any amount of money, you could be really, really expensive, or you could be really, really cheap, depending on who you're talking to. For example, I can quote the same or a similar job to two different clients. We've got client A and we've got client B. Client A may come back to me and go, "Oh, you're very expensive. I need to specifically, can we see if we can work out cost here?" Because their perception is that you are too expensive. But client B, I'm quoting the same amount, I'm quoting the same amount of money, and how I'm quoting is the same. And client B will go, "Oh, you're actually a lot cheaper than I was expecting. Let's move forward," and so on. And it just depends on how much residual or how much revenue or how much money they are willing to spend in the value or in the service that you provide. So if they can already see a return, or are going to potentially see a return on this investment of creating a promotional video, for example, or creating a longer term video series such as a vlog, for example, then you will be able to, they may be able to see that value. Others may not necessarily, and it's your job to help them understand why that's valuable. You should never expect them to expect you, for them to know how valuable your service is or how valuable your service is worth. And, they don't know how much your cameras cost. They don't know how much your microphones cost. They don't know how much your lights cost. They don't know how much your premises cost. They don't know how much, etc. Every business owner that I've talked to understands that you have specific costs yourself and you're quoting accordingly. And I think the age-old term is you get what you pay for, right? So if you feel you're concerned that your quality of product or your quality of service isn't necessarily going to be as high quality because maybe you're new into the business or maybe you haven't been in business that long, then go in slightly cheaper, right? There is merit, and I've talked about this in podcasts, I've talked about this in other content about, doing the 50 quid photo shoot, for example. The point is, for a 50 quid photo shoot, is not to imply that you can make a living on that 50 quid photo shoot. That's not the point. The point is to do a 50 quid photo shoot that helps you learn how to do a paid photo shoot, number one. Number two, it also allows you to, as long as the expectation is set correctly, that allows you to be able to expect and talk to those clients and build that relationship building and learn how to set up a business and how to run a photography agency or how to run a video agency or how to create media content, and where your role as a media content creator fits in the marketing space or in the in the world of business, and where you can add that value and where you can add that service to your clients or to who that potential client may be. So I hope that did clear some things up, because I know there is a couple of people who do watch the channel who are starting out videographers or starting out photographers, and they are, they ask me a lot of the time, how much do I charge, or do I charge too much, or am I charging too much, or why am I charging this much, and etc. And the honest answer is, ask yourself, what value are you adding to that business, or what value are you adding to that client, and does that kind of correlate in the amount you're paying? You're always going to have, as I said, you're always going to have people who think you're more expensive or too expensive, and you're always going to have people who think you are cheaper, even though your prices don't necessarily the same. And just to summarize briefly, when you have a higher level of demand than you can serve, then you should naturally increase your prices, because unfortunately that means you are going to lose some clients. But what it's going to mean is that you are in a position where you're still able to do a very good job for the clients you do serve, because they are going to pay you more, therefore they would expect a higher level of service from you. And that doesn't mean by no means that when you've got more money on the line there's more stress on the line. There is, absolutely, but also it doesn't make it less likely that a problem is going to occur or a mistake is not going to happen, or etc. But it's then you will hopefully be in a position then where you are more likely to understand how to deal with that problem, or how to deal with that mistake, or how to deal with that concern, and you're not going to crumble under the pressure, so to speak, because by that point you will have hopefully understood and be aware of what can go wrong and what will go wrong when it comes to video production or whatever else that you do watching this video. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you took value from this video. If there is any other questions or any other thoughts that you want to articulate to me, and you have any questions you want me to do a follow-up or maybe just answer briefly in a comment, let me know in the comment section down below. If you're new to the channel and this is the first video you're seeing, make sure to be subscribed if you enjoyed this piece of content. I'll be doing a lot more very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you very soon.